Diving into the Greek today to respond to Cheryl Schatz's articles on John chapter 6, or at least start on that. The website is mmoutreach.org, mmoutreach.org. It's called The Giving, is at the top of the page. And this is from March 5th, 2013. The last one that we want to get to eventually on John 6:44 was published 2 days ago, which is why B, the Calvinist, sent this to me. And so it obviously doesn't make any sense to try to deal with the John 6:44 comments until you've dealt with what comes before them. So going back to the John 6:37, all the Father gives me will come to me article. Again, mmoutreach.org/tg/come-John 6-37 / if you want to find it and read along if you wish to. Here we have Cheryl Schatz, and my recollection is that Mrs. Schatz is in fact, there's a DVD coming soon. Yeah, The Giving DVD coming soon. Just wanted to interview me on John chapter 6, and I didn't choose to go there. I figured it would be best to respond once the argumentation came out, and I guess this is what we're going to be seeing. What concerns me about this presentation is that once again you have a lot of reference to the grammar of the Greek, but what you don't have is a knowledge of the syntax of the Greek.
Thank you, Dr. White, for reminding us how important the syntax of the Greek is to our interpretation.
Anybody can post citations from BDAG and Loanita and Wallace and everybody else. Probably won't post much from Wallace because that's where you got to know some syntax, know what he's talking about.
Dr. Wallace has helped me in the past with correction. He also recommended that I purchase his studies in Biblical Greek, Granville Sharp's Canon and its Kin. He said it would be helpful to me.
If we look at this particular text, John 6:37 is brought up. And I'm not feeding you this particular article. The print's really small. You'd have to blow it up really, really big. But using accordance was probably fine. There's a lot of true things said here.
Thank you, Dr. White. I appreciate you saying that there is a lot of truth in my article.
But it's the final get around that I want to deal with here. We all know what John 6:37 says, all the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. And as we point out in responding to Kerrigan Skelly, if you don't see how the language is relating to itself, if you don't see how tenses and modes and voices and participles and finite verbs, how they all relate to each other in a context, then it is very easy to overthrow the actual meaning of a text by saying, well, this is a present, and the present means this. Well, a present finite verb and a present participle, and whether it's articular, that is substantival or not substantival, and the interplay of presents and aorists and periphrastic constructions and all these other things come into play. And if you don't recognize those things, the result can be a royal mess.
Dr. White, the grammar of the word gives is not a present participle. It is not articular or substantival, and it is not aorist. nor is it a paraphrastic construction. When you throw out all of these things that is not a part of the grammar of the word gives, are you trying to muddy the water with what is not there? Surely you cannot be claiming that the present active indicative finite verb gives is more than that, right? Let's have a look at what the scholars say about the present tense grammar of the word gives in John chapter 6, verse 37. If possible to do so, the translation should maintain the contrast between the present tense gives of this verse and the perfect tense has given of verse 39. A handbook on the Gospel of John by Newman and Nida. Before they can come to Christ, it is necessary that the Father give them to Him. There are difficulties as we try to reconcile the two parts of the verse, but whether we succeed in that or not, we dare not abandon the truth in either part. Note 106. The present tense is used here where the Son awaits. In verse 39, the perfect expresses the gift as completed in the will of the Father. From the Gospel according to John by Morris. The giving implies a present activity of grace, not a foregone conclusion. From the Pulpit Commentary on St. John by Spence Jones. The word come is made to serve within 2 or 3 lines for 3 different Greek words. Literally, we should read, "All that the Father giveth me shall arrive at me, and him that is on the way I will in no wise cast out, for I am come down." The present tense of giveth should be noted. The giving is not an act in the past, but of a ceaseless love ever in the present. From Ellicott's Commentary for English Readers. All those given by the Father to the Son will come to the Son. It is vital to see the truth that is communicated by this phrase. The giving by the Father to the Son precedes and determines the coming of the person to Christ. The action of giving by the Father comes before the action of coming to Christ by the individual. Dr. James White from Vintage Amen. Dr. White, I agree that the giving by the Father to the Son precedes the coming of the person to Christ. However, I would ask that you also agree with me that the present tense of giving in John chapter 6 verse 37 comes before the perfect tense in verse 39. I would also like you to agree with me that the giving in verse 37 is indeed a present tense in the context. It is an act not in the past, but an ongoing action in the present. We simply cannot ignore the present tense of John chapter 6 verse 37, just as we cannot ignore the perfect tense in verse 39. Each piece of grammar reveals a different aspect of the giving. One sees the giving as it is happening. The other sees the end result on the last day as it has already happened. But if we disregard the first giving in John chapter 6 verse 37 and see it as a past action and do not recognize and maintain the contrast with verse 39, are we not falling into what you have already defined as a royal mess? Thank you, Dr. White, for allowing me to interact, to answer, and to challenge you. You deserve respect as a brother in Christ. More responses to follow.